Welcome back to another episode of the How to Get a Job podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the lucrative, impactful, and amazing industry of medical sales. And to talk about this amazing industry, I have Taylor Orr. She is the founder and head career coach for the Medical Sales Guide. And I'm just excited that you're here. Taylor, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm super excited to be here, Daniel. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to be back on this podcast. We took a little break on it and I forgot how much I love talking about careers. And this is a highlight for the day for me, is recording this type of podcast.
Oh, I love that. I'm super excited to get talking about everything.
So I am super interested to talk to you about the medical sales industry and maybe some of the changes that you've seen happen in the last couple of years to the industry. Because when I went to, I'll give you guys, the audience, a little bit of context, and maybe for you too. I went to college at the University of Central Florida, and I graduated in 2012. And I was part of this program called the Professional Sales Program. And in that program, which there is not a lot of universities that teach professional sales, even though I think over 60% of college grads go into a sales role as their first job, first job out of college. But I was exposed to a couple of medical sales companies that would come and recruit from our program. We only had 30 people in our program. It was like this very, very hard program to get into, but we were recruited by tech companies. We were recruited by financial service companies. We were recruited by consumer packaged goods training programs, which is the one that I ended up going to, medical sales programs and all. So I was able to get exposed to all this type of professional sales career paths that you could do. And I learned a lot about medical sales, and it is very lucrative. And so I want to talk to you about, your journey. How did you get into medical sales? And why should people listening to this consider to go into medical sales? And what does it require to be successful in medical sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. A little bit of background about me. So how I even got into the medical sales industry. So kind of my path from the very beginning was I was always very passionate about like the science background. So I thought I was going to take more so of the nursing route originally when I went to college. But also when I was in college, I was super interested in like this whole business side of the world. Like I thought about switching my major completely to business, but I couldn't decide between the two. I had some exposure kind of to the industry because my mom was in the pharmaceutical sales world. So I at least knew about it. Started doing some research on it and I realized like, okay, cool. Medical sales really combines like the science, the health aspect of it, but you still get the business side of it, kind of more of like the entrepreneurial spirit too. So I decided to take that route. So I get out of college and I tried to break into medical sales, which kind of leads to why I'm a coach today. And it was extremely difficult. I did, quote unquote, everything right when I was in college to check the boxes, to try to get into the medical sales industry, thinking this probably isn't going to be easy, but surely I'll be able to break in. And I could not. And I was just completely thrown off by that. I was very stressed out. It was very frustrating. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. So for a couple years on the side, I ended up just getting like some standard sales experience, really building my resume. And then I was able to do tons of research, change my whole approach, and I was able to break into medical sales. And so then I was a rep in the medical sales industry for about 6 years. I was a top performing rep the whole time that I was in the industry with still a lot of highs and lows. It's a roller coaster of an industry, but it's such a great industry and I'm biased. I think it's the best, but it's such a great industry that truly you can have such a strong passion behind it. Like at the end of the day, you are helping these patients. Like no matter what you're doing in the medical or pharmaceutical sales industry, like you're involved in that end result for these patients. So to me, that was really cool. It's a very rewarding industry, but like you said, it's also very lucrative too. It's most companies, you're in like an uncapped type of role. So you can really make a lot of money. It's not like, hey, here's your base, here's what you're going to make no matter how hard you work, like you're only going to make X amount. It's really an industry where you get out there and the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. So if you're a super driven person, you're going to get out there, tons of potential to make a lot of money. Plus you are in an industry that has, you can have a lot of passion behind it. There's a lot of meaning behind it. So really get best of both worlds.
Taylor, question for you, because you said something, and I'm always looking for patterns. You said when you first tried to get into the industry, you felt like you had done everything right, but you couldn't get into it.
Mhm.
And then you finally broke it in, and you for 6 years, you were a top performer, rookie of the year, president's club, right? And so you now see the pattern of what it takes for someone to break into it, what doesn't, and what it takes somebody to be successful in the industry, what not. What are those qualities? Like, what are you looking for? Like, what would be the prerequisite for somebody to, one, break into medical sales, and two, to be successful in medical sales?
Definitely. One of the things I actually just posted about it today on LinkedIn, but one of the big things is you have to be coachable. That's a big thing. So even when I talk to people all the time on LinkedIn that reach out to me that they're trying to get help to break into the industry. And if we get to a point where we're going over my coaching program, I really want to make sure these people are coachable because you have to be to break in. Another thing, this sounds simple, but you've got to really have a positive mindset because medical sales is a roller coaster. You are going to have weeks, months, quarters. You're doing great. You're making sales. You're like, this is awesome. But you're going to get the other end of it where you're not making sales. You're struggling. You're not getting those commission checks anymore. And it gets really stressful. In medical sales, your numbers, your performance is blasted to the whole company. Everybody sees how you're performing. And if you don't have a positive mindset, you can fall into a dark hole very quickly. And you can almost kind of give up. Like you can get to a point very easily in medical sales where you're just like, like I can't do this or I don't want to do this anymore. Or you're not in an office where you're with your manager all the time. You're truly on your own. So you have to make yourself get out there and go make those cold calls, go meet with doctors, go into hospitals. So you also need to be very, very self motivated. You have to be able to get yourself to make your own schedule, make your own meetings, go to these places. You don't have anybody watching over you or like breathing down your throat. So those are the probably three main things: coachability, positivity, and self motivated.
So let's play. I'm playing devil's advocate with you here, and I hear what you're saying. I'm listening to this podcast, and I hear, okay, Taylor, that sounds great, but all those things you mentioned are tangible things
Hmm.
that I can't go put in my resume. And so the challenge is that I'm applying, but I'm not getting the interview. So
Yep.
is there any prerequisites or what needs to be on my resume, or how do I have to have a particular experience? Do I have to have a degree? Is there a particular degree that I need to have? Do I need to have years of experience in sales? Like, what does that look like if I just have been applying? I know I've heard of it, but I'm just getting no traction.
Yep. A couple things. So this is kind of a two-part answer I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
If two things, you have a bachelor's degree and you have some type of sales experience where you have had success, your odds of breaking in are going to be higher. And I tell people this all the time, but they are not required to break in. If you don't have a bachelor's degree or you don't have sales experience, is it going to be harder to break in? Yes, it absolutely will be, but is it 100% possible? You just have to make sure if you are like, this is the industry I want to go in, you have to be 110% committed and you have to be prepared to do all of the work to break in. So, a big piece that no matter what you have to focus on is networking. But if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you don't have that sales experience that just immediately pops on your resume like that, you really need to be networking so, so, so heavily so you can kind of get in front of these people and show them, hey, look at everything I bring to the table. I know on paper I don't have that sales experience, but I can bring everything you're looking for to your team. There's also ways without your, standard sales job. I think every job in some way, shape, or form is sales. You are doing some type of
Yeah.
sales, activities in your day-to-day role. So that's one thing I work on with my clients very heavily is we really deep dive into like, what have you done in your past work, your past jobs? What did your day-to-days look like? And we can really transform that into like more of a sales background. And I also teach them like, here's how you're going to speak to your past experience more on like a sales level. So you can break in, like really anybody can. It's just very difficult. If you have the bachelor's degree in sales experience, you are going to have a little bit of an easier time to break in.
Is there a story that comes to mind of someone that like traditionally probably didn't look on paper that they would be a good fit for this industry that maybe you've seen or worked with that was able to then break into it, and what made them able to break into it?
Hmm. I would say probably the one that stands out to me most was, I had somebody come to me. She was a recent college grad. So literally no like professional work experience at all on her resume. And she did have a bachelor's degree, obviously, which is great, but sometimes not having any professional work experience can also be a red flag for companies because they're like, we don't know how you perform. You haven't actually been out in that like corporate adult world before. But she came to me, we worked together, and she was able to break into a top company. And she's been very successful. I was talking to her the other day. She's already been promoted. But one thing that she did was kind of goes back to the coachability of it all is she took everything that I was teaching her, talking to her about, and she went and implemented. She listened to everything I was saying. She put in work every single day. And you're going to get a lot of rejection trying to break into medical sales, and that can hold a lot of people back. She didn't let it hold her back. She would face rejection, and we would sit down, we would learn from it, and she would, improve and correct herself and do better the next time. And she didn't let it get to her. And so, yeah, she was able to break in right out of college.
How important is like coffee chats, networking, LinkedIn when it comes to the medical sales industry?
So important. If you're not networking, you're most likely not going to break in. Like very, very rare do people break in today's world without doing any networking. If you just go and submit your resume and hopefully I get a response. And even then, if you get into the interview process, you still have to be networking throughout the whole entire interview process. So it's a must. It's not like a maybe I should, it's an absolute must to be able to break in.
How would you suggest someone preparing for medical sales interviews? Is there a difference? Is it just behavioral, or is there other type of interviews that hiring managers or even HR is looking for to assess during the interview?
It is mostly behavioral. There's like different stages that you kind of have to prep for.
Mhm.
Like at the beginning, they're really more so just going to be asking you, like, hey, why do you want to get into medical sales? Why this company? They might ask you some like more behavioral questions. And towards the end, they are going to get a little more like sales focused, which is why you have to be prepared to answer these behavioral questions. But you also need to be prepared especially if you don't have sales experience, to speak in that sales acumen and be able to show them again, like, hey, I know I don't have that on paper sales experience, but I do have sales experience because here's what I'm doing every day. It's just so important for interview prep. I have my clients, I basically always say, like, you want to build a big bucket of stories,
Mhm.
basically, that you have been preparing, you're ready to tell, you're ready to speak to, that every single one of these stories you're selling yourself, and they somehow are going to show like transferable skills into the medical sales industry. So that way, when you're in these interviews and they start firing questions off at you can kind of pull from that bucket and be like, oh, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. So it's kind of the mindset I like to get them in to help prepare.
In hiring, past performance is a really good indicator of future performance.
Yeah.
When you don't have medical sales experience on your resume, what advice do you have for a candidate to be able to prove to them that they're going to be a low risk hire if they don't have past performance in medical sales?
That's a great question. I think, again, even if it's only a few things from your past experience to be able to show them, like, there's more to sales than just sales. Like, there's management, there's organization, there's relationship building. Like, those are all things. Like, if you can't throw numbers out at them of, like, hey, I built this territory, I was 110% to quota, talk about all those other skills that are important in sales. So I think that's a big thing to focus on when you're in the interview process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. When I think about medical sales, I think medical sales is like the big umbrella, but within it, you have pharmaceutical, you have device sales, and I think you have labs or diagnostic, right? Is there a particular one of those, or maybe I'm missing another category? And if I am, please let like add it to it that it's easier to break into than others.
Uh, I would say the easier could technically be a couple routes. An associate role is a great way to break in. Another area that a lot of people kind of forget about is more of like the supplies side of things. So in medical sales, you can sell like disposables or consumables, is what they're called. And a lot of times, these supply reps, you're still like a full line territory rep, but you're working with a territory manager. So that's a great way to break in. And a lot of people focus on these big name companies. You've got the Stryker, the Medtronics, Boston Scientifics, AbbVie, Abbott. And so they're stuck in like those big name companies, but I always urge people to focus on some of those smaller companies or companies you've never heard of because not as many people are targeting those. And sometimes those are the best opportunities out there. They're going to have the best culture, sometimes the best pay, the best benefits, all of it.
Is there companies that are more friendly to like non-experienced people? Maybe they have a good management program or a good sales program or training program that makes it more like where they recruit more new or less experienced professionals that you can
Uh,
guide.
there are a few, I would say. Like I know, and I think it's actually becoming more popular. I'm seeing more and more medical sales companies post like almost like a medical sales like training program where
Yep.
you can start not as like an intern, but
Yeah.
like I've seen Johnson and Johnson do it. I've seen BD do it. Stryker will hire people without experience, but it's one of the most competitive companies out there. I've seen Zimmer Biomet do it. Uh, but then I've also, I've worked with clients too that don't have the experience that they've been able to break into some of these other companies that traditionally don't hire people without the sales experience. So it's possible.
Do you think AI is increasing the number of sales reps or decreasing the number of sales reps? Or maybe we don't know. But
I
like,
really,
what's your gut tell you, or what are you seeing? Like, are there more openings in 2026 than there was last year, or
I
is this
feel
an
like
industry
it's,
that's died?
I don't think, I mean, maybe at some point it'll affect medical sales, but at the end of the day, I don't think AI is going to be replacing medical sales reps because you have to have that in-person relationship going in with these doctors. Like this is such a big purchasing decision for these hospitals that they need that person like coming into them and building those relationships and really building that trust. So I don't think it'll ever replace sales reps. And I'm not seeing that. I think, that just in general, the hiring has slowed down a little bit just in a lot of different industries, but I don't think AI is like replacing that.
I have a theory, and again, I don't know how right or wrong I am. I actually think that, like in an industry in medical sales, I think AI will actually increase the demand for medical sales reps, and I think a lot of it is because I think all these companies are going to be able to make more niche, specialized medication, which then you need reps to sell those niche down medication, right? Because a lot of times there's a lot of diseases or problems that are not being researched heavily because only maybe 10,000 people in the US might get it in 1 year. So it's not big enough market for to spend billions of dollars in research. But I think with AI, a lot of that will make for more medication to be made, specialized medication to solve specifically really, really rare problems or and things. And so you need more you're going to need more sales reps for that. And also people buy from people. Like people, there's still this thing about the relationship that needs to be built in medical sales and even tech sales. Like there's more sales roles opening in tech sales this year than there was last year. So like, I think people will still, I think sales as an industry is not going to go away as much as people are like, oh yeah, but AI can make it sound like in-person sales will become more important. Telemarketing sales, fine. Like I get it. Like cold calling, got it. But in person, the relationship part, I just don't see it going anywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. Can you still hear me? Okay,
Yep,
by the
yep,
way?
yep. You're good.
Yep. Okay. I just had to switch to my AirPods, but I agree. And I feel like if you kind of look at like the history of sales over the past like 10 to 20 years, there's always been something that comes up that there's this fear of like sales reps are no longer going to exist. And that has never happened.
Yeah,
Like there's always going to be a need for sales rep. I think, like you said, AI is just going to bring more awareness, more opportunity. I think it's going to bring a lot more tools for sales reps, for doctors, for healthcare professionals to collaborate and come together and be able to find results or products or solutions, whatever it may be, quicker for the patients.
yeah, yeah. Um, Taylor, for you, have you found like, is there particular jobs or background or other industries that people maybe be sales for that make really good medical sales rep? Like, give you an example. A friend of mine says nurses make really good medical sales reps because they understand the science already and they come from a point of teaching now this pushy sales type of techniques. Is there other, aside from nursing, or maybe nursing, we could elaborate more on that, that just like if you have this background and haven't considered medical sales, they could be like, oh, maybe I should.
Yeah, definitely, your friend's right. Nursing or any type of clinical background is great, but also obviously like sales background is great, but getting more specific is a B2B sales background. So if you're in a sales role where you're getting out there and you're literally going like door to door, you're picking up the phone, you're doing straight cold calls, that is going to build an insane strong foundation and it's going to build really thick skin. I did B2B sales before medical sales. And if you can do that, you can absolutely do medical sales. I know some of the big players out there that have good like B2B sales training programs is ADP, Enterprise,
Mm,
Staples, things like that. I've even like people that are coming from like pest control or
yeah,
window cleaning, like AT&T, like people that are literally going and knocking
yeah.
on doors. If you can show some success there, like it's such a green flag for medical sales companies and you're going to crush it in medical sales.
Would be going from a server with no degree to medical sales, would that be too much of a stretch?
No, that's definitely possible because a couple things, you're working long, crazy hours. You're dealing with a bunch of people, bunch of different personality types, and you're still selling. Like a lot of times as a server, you drop like appetizers or desserts or specials or
Yeah.
alcohol sales. Like there's a way that you are still selling and increasing sales.
I have a dream. One of my childhood best friends, always like once a year, will be like, I need to do something different with my life. And he is the most like people person I've ever met. Like, like he's such a good server. Like he's the server right now at a really really good restaurant in Orlando, and he's just so good. Like I've gone to his restaurant because I love the food at the restaurant, and not
Hmm.
even sat on his tables because his tables are always packed because he has regulars that come, right. And he's like, yeah, but I feel like I want to do more. And I'm like, dude, you need to go into B2B sales. Like you need to go to like,
Oh my gosh.
and I've always
Yes.
never thought about medical sales because I thought like you needed a degree and like maybe this is, I have my limiting beliefs there. But I think he would crush it in sales because he can make anybody feel special. Like I don't know if like he just connects, finds a commonality, laser focuses. He just knows how
Yes.
to break that wall.
He would, just from hearing that, yes, he would crush it in sales and medical sales. Like a lot of times, at the end of the day, you've got to learn like the basis of sales, like a sales cycle,
Yep.
but it's relationship building. If you can go and have that type of connection with people and build those relationships and make people feel that way, not everybody can do that. Not many people can do that. So he would definitely crush it in
I
medical
think we
sales.
crush it. So let's go on this journey. We're not going to name my guy, but what would you say to him if he then says, but Taylor, like I already make like 80 to 80, let's say 80 to $90,000 a year with tips and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And this is certainty. Now I have a family, I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have all this to pay. Like I'm afraid to take that risk.
Yep. What would I say to like tell him
Yeah.
to take the risk?
Or like, should he take the risk? Like, how risky would it be to go into medical sales and expect to make that much money? Or is that realistic thing to make in the first year?
Totally realistic. Even like in an associate role, he can make that. Like even if he had to go into medical sales, say he went into an associate role for a year, which is the lower end of what your income could be. You know, you get promoted a year later and you've now doubled your income with the uncapped commission to where you can make as much money. I would also tell him, at least from my experience as a server, I don't know his exact situation, but in my experience, especially if he has a family, what are his hours like? Are you having to work late nights? Are you having to work weekends? Are you having to work holidays? You know, the work life balance, in my opinion, as a server can get pretty hectic, whereas it's going to be better in medical sales. Yes, you're going to have some travel. You're going to have long days, early mornings, late nights, but it's not like the server life. You're going to have a better work life balance and just the potential to grow. As a server, I'm sure you can go up to a management role, all of that. There is room for growth, but
But a lot of
you get
times
to a
when you go
point
from a
that
server that makes good tips to a manager, you actually take a pay cut, which is like the
true because you're
server
not,
trap of like a salary, like an assistant manager at a restaurant would be like 55K, 60K.
wow. That's crazy.
right?
Because, yeah, I guess you lose out on the tip aspect of it
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Yeah. So then I would
Which is
have
a
them sit
trap. It's
back.
like in
It is a
Orlando,
trap.
it's like the server trap in Orlando, Florida. The amount of people that, and this is just one friend that it's like I love dearly. He's like my brother, but like the amount of people that I see that graduated college and were a server in college, they were making, because there's so many restaurants in Orlando because of all the tourism, that they were making 50, 60, $70,000 serving in college because they have been doing it for a couple of years. They work at good restaurants and they would get full-time jobs making 40, 45,000. But usually our lifestyle is accommodated of what we earn. So if you've been earning $60,000 for the last 2 years and then you go and get a full-time job making 50, you have $10,000 of expenses to cut, and that becomes very, very hard. And I think that's
Yes.
the trap. Like that's what we call the server trap. Is like, how do you take a step back to being a manager of a restaurant for the long term? And sometimes you can't, especially if you have family. And so I think that's the biggest fear where I see so many people that are underemployed based on their potential, like where
Oh, yeah.
they that they could be they could be in a different industry, they could be making more money, they could be doing a job that's more satisfying, more fulfilling. There's room for growth, but it's taking the first jump that's the scariest part.
It really is. And that's also one of the reasons why I decided to go all in on this, medical sales coach is because there are so many people out there that have so much potential. They can crush it in this industry. It's very hard to break into. So they need a coach or, a method, a strategy, some type of guide to be able to break in. And that's one of the things I love about it. Just kind of as you mentioned that, just seeing these people with, all this potential that they never really thought that they could go into an industry like this when they
Yeah.
absolutely can.
The way I see this, like if you're listening to this, if you are a server, has sales experience, maybe you worked at Enterprise, you mentioned Enterprise. I did an
Hmm.
internship at Enterprise and I know they have a really good management training program. Maybe you
Yes.
worked at Cintas or you
Hmm.
have worked at pest control and you're like, hey, like I'm doing good, but I know I could do better. Like I'm doing good, but I know that I can make more money, but there's a cap ceiling there. The way I look at this, to me, like, because I'm always trying to balance the risk versus the reward. If I am listening to this, I would hire somebody like you. I would hire you. I would go connect with you, and we'll have you put your information here in a second and mitigate my risk, because I wouldn't say go quit your server job today and then let's go get a job. I would say keep your server job, find the job, get the job offer at the medical sales company, and then go make, and maybe go and serve on the weekends instead of doing four
Yeah.
shifts, 5 shifts. Go for the first 3 months and to mitigate your risk. Go through the first 90 days. Work on the
Hmm.
weekends. Yes, it's gonna suck. Sacrifice it. It's gonna be worth it. But at least that way, you're gonna be able to make this jump, mitigate the risk. And I do think that in medical sales, like I have a friend in medical sales who makes like $500,000 a year, and I don't know that he works more than 20 hours a week. I think, well, and by the way, he's been doing this for over 15 years. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you're like, he has his book of business. He sells a very
Hmm.
specific drug for a particular drug, like very specialized drug that they're the only ones who make it. So, but he couldn't have gotten that job as a break into medical sales. Like this is like he's had to get to there.
Yes.
But man, what a life he has.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a big thing too, is like, some of these people are scared to take the jump or the risk, but
Yeah.
it's like the opportunity in medical sales of what you can make in the industry. Even like if you're still on the beginning path, like it's like, okay, say you start out an associate making 80K, but the next year you're making 110. And then it's like, okay, you quickly have bump up to like the high hundreds, 200s, even $200,000 a year. It's like, it's kind of unfathomable to some people, but it's doable.
So really quick, like first year, what's the range? What's a conservative? Like kind of like say worst, not worst case scenario. We
Yes.
do really bad, but like pretty like if you're average rep and then above average, what would be like a range that you can see somebody make it in the first year?
Yeah. Kind of depends on if you're an associate or full line. But if you're more on the associate, I would say anywhere I've seen on the lower end around like 60, 65K up to like 85K ish, maybe even up to 90 in the first year in that associate role. And then if you're a full line territory manager, I would say, again, on average, every company is a little bit
Yeah.
different. like maybe starting off like 120, 150-ish. And then that's like, even if you're not fully hitting your quota, obviously your job is to hit your quota, but
Because you will lose that job.
yes. But then, in my roles, like you're able to grow. And then I had people, like you said, that once you get in a role and you're in the territory longer and you build up that book of business, you're easily making over 200K a year, close to 300K a year for some roles.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor, tell us a little bit more about you, your program, kind of like how you work with clients and how they can get a hold of you if they want to learn more.
Yeah, definitely. First things first, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, it's all through LinkedIn. So just go on LinkedIn and search. It's Taylor Mefford. So it's actually still my maiden name. I recently got married in the past year. So I'm not Taylor Orr, but my LinkedIn is still Taylor Mefford. And if you want to connect with me, send me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm always chatting to people over LinkedIn. I love helping out, just hearing where people are at. But if anybody is more specifically interested in my coaching program, it is I do one-on-one coaching. So something a little bit unique about me is I work with all my clients one-on-one. It's an unlimited coaching that I do, and I work with my clients until they get placed into the medical sales industry. I have it structured that way just because I know how much it takes to break into this industry. Everybody's a little bit different on their focus areas. Although I do have a whole curated program and structure, I'm able to take a very personalized approach. So, yeah, that's how I like to work with people. And, I also help them too once they get the role, actually transition into medical sales. So, we do a couple coaching calls of like, okay, great, you're now a medical sales rep. How the heck do you go into this role to make sure you're going to start off on the right foot and be successful? And hopefully they work their way to be a top performing rep.
Taylor, that is awesome. I think the fact that so first, breaking into the medical sales would be a life-changing move, especially if you are in maybe where it might feel like a dead end career, but you have the
Hmm.
skills, the personality, the charisma, the smarts to study the science of the drug that you're essentially selling. But the fact that you will work with them one on one until they get the job, it's like that level of like security to me becomes a no brainer. Like if you are listening to this and you have been thinking a lot about, I need to make this move. Like I've been thinking about changing my career for a couple of years. I would say don't take the whole jump right away. Work with Taylor, and then once you get the job offer, make the jump. Like I think that is a good way to mitigate the risk, and I just see it as a no brainer. So, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching this and you're listening to this, maybe this is for you, but maybe you're like, no, I love my career, I love my job, I can never see myself in sales. But do you know someone that this podcast, this particular episode could be valuable? Hesitate to share it. You don't know what a simple text message to your friend that he could do better, that he's stuck, and this episode can just be eye opening to be like, wow, I never thought about medical sales. I love science. I love helping people, and I want to make money. This could be really big. So don't forget to do that. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Hold on.